Have you ever wondered why your thoughts seem to control you, pulling you in different directions, creating endless cycles of confusion and dissatisfaction? Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a wild river, always rushing, never still, constantly changing, and yet within it you have the potential to find peace. But how do you stop being swept away? How do you step out of the stream of thoughts that dictate your life? In the pursuit of clarity, we must first confront the truth of our thinking. The mind, conditioned by years of influence, society, family, experiences, shapes the way we view ourselves and the world. But have you ever asked yourself, what if all these thoughts, all this conditioning, are leading you away from the truth? Krishnamurti spoke of the importance of understanding the self. He suggested that this self, the very image you hold of yourself, may be the root of your suffering. You see, the ego is not a singular entity but a collection of thoughts, images, and memories. And within these layers, we hide the essence of who we truly are. The more we cling to these images, the more we entangle ourselves in our own limitations. The question then becomes, how do we free ourselves from this mental prison? The answer lies not in intellectual understanding or clever reasoning, but in observation, the act of simply watching the mind without interference. This sounds simple, but it is far from easy. The mind is constantly in motion, constantly thinking, planning, worrying. Yet, what if you could just sit back, silently observing the thoughts as they arise? What if you could be present with your thoughts without attaching to them? To understand the nature of your thoughts, you must first become aware of them, without judgment, without identification. Most of us don't realize that we are not our thoughts. We are the one who observes them. By observing, we gain distance from the thoughts that seem so real, so urgent. We begin to see them for what they are, fleeting mental impressions that do not define us. It is this awareness that has the potential to transform your relationship with your mind. Think about it. When was the last time you truly listened to your inner voice without judgment? When did you give yourself the space to just be with your thoughts, without trying to change them or suppress them? In the quiet space of awareness, you begin to notice that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that is observing them. And in that moment, a profound shift can occur. You can stop being controlled by your thoughts and start seeing them for what they truly are, just thoughts. But this is where most people get stuck. It is easy to think that the goal is to eliminate all thoughts and live in complete silence. But Krishnamurti cautioned against this. Silence, true silence, is not the absence of noise. It is the freedom from attachment to the noise. It is the freedom from identification with the thought stream that defines who we are. Now, you might be wondering, how does this awareness translate into practical change in your life? How can simply observing your thoughts lead to transformation? The answer lies in your ability to choose your response. When you are no longer caught in the mental whirlpool, you can respond to situations, people, and life itself from a place of clarity, not from a place of conditioned reaction. In relationships, for example, how often do we react impulsively, driven by past experiences, unresolved wounds, or unmet expectations? We respond from the ego, defensive, afraid, or self-centered. But when you observe your thoughts without attachment, you begin to see that these reactions are not inherent to who you are. They are simply patterns you've learned. And in that space of awareness, you can choose not to react. You can choose to respond with compassion, understanding, and insight. This is the essence of personal transformation. It is not about changing who you are, but about peeling back the layers of conditioning that have obscured your true nature. It is about recognizing that the mind, when observed with awareness, loses its power to control you. You are no longer a slave to your thoughts, but rather, you become the master of your own mind. Krishnamurti often said, "The observer is the observed." This profound statement invites us to realize that the distinction between the one who thinks and the thought itself is an illusion. The moment you understand this, you begin to transcend the limitations of your conditioning. You begin to see that true freedom comes not from controlling your thoughts, but from realizing that you are not bound by them. This awareness, this shift in perception, is not something that can be grasped intellectually. It is something that can only be understood through direct experience. It requires patience, commitment, and a willingness to face the discomfort that may arise as you confront the deeply ingrained patterns of thought that have shaped your life. And so, the question remains, how do you begin to transform your thinking? The answer lies in the practice of awareness, the practice of observing your thoughts without judgment, without identification. It is in this space of quiet observation that the mind begins to lose its grip on you. And as you continue this practice, You will begin to see the world in a new light, free from the distortions of your conditioned mind. As you begin to notice the thoughts that rise in your mind, something profound begins to unfold. You start to see the layers upon layers of conditioned beliefs, the repeated patterns of fear, anger, desire, and attachment that have been cultivated over years, perhaps even lifetimes. These patterns, once so tightly interwoven with your sense of self, now begin to unravel. At first it might seem overwhelming. The mind, having been the center of your reality for so long, doesn't like this shift. It fights back with even more thoughts, louder and more insistent than before. This resistance is a natural part of the process. It is the ego trying to maintain its dominance, afraid of losing control. But you must remind yourself that this struggle is exactly why you must persist in the observation. The ego thrives on reaction, on being identified with thoughts and feelings. But the more you observe, the less hold it has on you. Think about the nature of thoughts for a moment. Thoughts are not static. They arise and fade away one after another like waves in the ocean. The more you cling to them, the more turbulent the waters become. But when you simply allow them to pass without reacting, they lose their power. You don't need to resist them or try to control them. You just need to see them for what they are, passing mental events that are not you, not your true essence. This shift in perception is the key to true freedom. You see, freedom does not lie in the absence of thoughts, but in the understanding that you are not your thoughts. The thoughts will come, they will go, but you remain, the silent witness, the pure awareness. This is the essence of self-liberation, as Krishnamurti spoke of so profoundly. Freedom is not something that can be attained, it is something that is already inherent in you, waiting to be recognized. The more you observe your thoughts with detachment, the more you begin to recognize a deeper truth. Your true self is not defined by the fleeting content of your mind. Your true self is the stillness beneath the waves, the awareness that sees the waves but is not affected by them. In this stillness, there is a deep sense of peace, a peace that comes from knowing that nothing in this world can define you, nothing can bind you, except the thoughts you choose to identify with. But understanding this intellectually is not enough. It must be lived. The mind will continue to throw up distractions, doubts, and fears. It is easy to slip back into old patterns, to identify with the thoughts that arise, to get lost in the illusions of the mind. But each time you catch yourself doing so, you have the opportunity to return to awareness. Each time you let go of the thought, each time you return to stillness, you are breaking the chains that have held you captive for so long. This is not an overnight transformation. It requires practice, patience, and a willingness to face the discomfort that comes with letting go of the familiar. The ego will not go quietly, it will fight for its survival. But as you persist, the grip of the ego loosens. The mind becomes quieter, more serene, and you begin to experience a new kind of freedom. One that is not dependent on external circumstances, but on your inner state of being. Imagine for a moment what life could be like if you no longer identified with your thoughts. What if you no longer believed the story your mind tells you about who you are? What if you could see beyond the labels, the judgments, the fears, and the desires that have shaped your existence? What would you be left with? You would be left with pure awareness, with the freedom to choose how to respond to the world, not from a place of conditioning, but from a place of clarity and insight. This is the power of awareness. This is the transformative force that Krishnamurti spoke of, an awareness that is not just intellectual but deeply experiential. It is the kind of awareness that transcends all division, all conflict. It is the awareness that allows you to see life as it truly is, not as your mind wants it to be. But this is only the beginning. As you continue to deepen your practice of awareness, you will begin to see the world differently. The people in your life, the situations you face, the challenges that arise, all of them will be seen through a new lens. No longer will you be reacting from a place of fear, judgment, or desire. You will be responding from a place of pure, unclouded awareness. In relationships, this shift is especially powerful. How often do we get caught in the stories we tell ourselves about others? How often do we react to them based on past experiences or our own insecurities? But when you are free from the grip of thought, you can see others as they truly are, not through the lens of your own projections. You can listen to them not just with your ears but with your heart. You can be present with them without trying to manipulate or control the situation. This is the beauty of transformation. It is not about changing the world around you, it is about changing your relationship with the world. And when you change your relationship with your thoughts, you change your relationship with everything. The process of observing, of becoming aware of your thoughts and emotions, is not always easy. It requires vulnerability, courage, and a willingness to face the darkest corners of your mind. But it is through this process that you find true freedom. You find the peace that comes from no longer being a prisoner to your thoughts, no longer being defined by your fears, your desires, or your past. And in that freedom you discover your true power. The power to choose how you respond to life. The power to live in the present moment without being weighed down by the past or the future. The power to be the observer, the silent witness to the drama of life, and yet to remain untouched by it. Krishnamurti once said, "The highest form of human intelligence is to observe yourself without judgment. In this observation, in this stillness, you begin to see the truth of who you are. And that truth, once realized, can never be taken away. It is the essence of your being, timeless, unchanging, and free." As you continue to practice awareness, the layers of the mind begin to peel away, revealing something far more profound than any thought or belief. It is as if a veil is lifted, and you begin to see the world not through the distortions of your past, but through the clarity of the present moment. This clarity, however, does not come from intellectual understanding. It comes from direct perception, seeing things as they truly are without the interference of thought. At first this may feel unsettling. The mind, so accustomed to its patterns, will try to regain control. It will remind you of past hurts, old fears, unresolved conflicts, and everything that has kept you bound to the past. These thoughts will come, but you must learn not to identify with them. They are not you. They are simply the echoes of a conditioned mind. This is where true freedom lies, not in denying these thoughts, not in pushing them away, but in seeing them for what they are, transient mental events. And as you see them for what they are, you begin to realize that they have no power over you. You can observe them, acknowledge them, and let them go. The more you practice this, the quieter the mind becomes. Not in the sense of suppressing thoughts, but in the sense of letting go of the need to hold on to them. Krishnamurti often spoke of the mind's incredible capacity for clarity when it is free from the noise of conditioning. He taught that the mind is naturally quiet, naturally intelligent, but that we have conditioned it to be reactive, to cling to thoughts, to live in the past or the future. When the mind is freed from this conditioning, it returns to its natural state of awareness, alert, clear, and present. This is the mind in its highest form, free from the tyranny of the ego, free from the endless chatter of thought. And in this state, you can respond to life with full awareness, not from a place of habit, but from a place of understanding. In relationships, this means you can meet others without projection, without the lens of your past experiences clouding your vision. You can see them as they are, not as you think they should be. It is the same with every aspect of life. When you are fully present, free from the constraints of thought, you can engage with life in a way that is deeply fulfilling. There is no more struggle against what is. There is no more resistance. There is only acceptance, understanding, and a deep sense of peace that arises when you stop fighting the flow of life and begin to flow with it. But this peace is not a passive state. It is an active state of being, one that requires constant awareness, constant observation. It is not something you achieve and then forget about. It is something you must cultivate every day. As you deepen your practice of awareness, you will find that the mind becomes more and more still. Thoughts still arise, but they no longer control you. You no longer identify with them. They are simply passing phenomena, and you are the one who observes them with clarity and detachment. This transformation, this liberation from the mind, is not something that happens overnight. It is a gradual process, one that requires patience, perseverance, and a deep commitment to understanding the nature of thought. But with time, the results will speak for themselves. You will experience a profound shift in the way you relate to the world, to others, and to yourself. As you continue on this journey, you will notice that your relationships begin to change. They become more genuine, more authentic. There is no longer the need to defend your ego, no longer the need to prove yourself. You can meet others with an open heart, free from the conditioning that once governed your interactions. And in this openness, you will find a deeper connection. A connection that transcends words, a connection that comes from the pure presence of being. This is the beauty of awareness. It transforms every aspect of your life, not by changing the world around you, but by changing your relationship to it. When you are free from the mind's limitations, you can experience life in its fullest, most vibrant form. You can live with a deep sense of purpose, clarity, and peace, knowing that you are not defined by your thoughts, but by the awareness that observes them. Krishnamurti's teachings remind us that the mind, when liberated, is capable of extraordinary insight, clarity, and understanding. It is capable of seeing the world as it truly is, without the filters of past conditioning. And in this clarity, you find the freedom to live fully, to engage with life in a way that is authentic, meaningful, and deeply fulfilling. This freedom does not come from seeking or striving. It comes from understanding, from observing, from letting go of the need to control or to hold on. It comes from the recognition that you are not the sum of your thoughts, but the awareness that is beyond them. And it is in this awareness that you find your true power, the power to live in peace, to respond with compassion, and to see the world with clarity and love. Krishnamurti once said, "The freedom to be is not the freedom to do as you like, but the freedom from the conditioning that holds you in its grip." This freedom is not something to be attained, it is something to be realized, something to be uncovered. It is already within you, waiting to be recognized. When you begin to realize that you are not your thoughts, that you are the awareness behind them, you will find that the world becomes a very different place. You will find that there is peace, there is love, there is understanding, and there is freedom. And in that freedom, you will experience life in its fullest, most authentic form. As you continue on this journey of awareness, there comes a moment when you realize that the struggle you once had with your thoughts, with your emotions, is no longer necessary. The battle between the self and the mind begins to dissolve. You no longer see your thoughts as something external, something separate from you. Instead, they become like the clouds in the sky, fleeting, passing, and without substance. They no longer hold you captive. This is the true liberation Krishnamurti spoke of, the freedom from the prison of thought. The mind, when untangled from the endless loops of conditioned thinking, becomes a tool rather than a master. It is in this state that you can begin to fully embrace the present moment, fully experience life as it unfolds, without the interference of judgment or fear. But how, you might ask, can you remain in this state of awareness amidst the chaos of everyday life? The key lies in consistency. Awareness is not something you achieve once and then forget. It is a practice, a continuous unfolding. Each moment becomes an opportunity to return to stillness, to observe without attachment, and to respond with clarity. It is in the small moments of life, when you're washing the dishes, walking in nature, or simply sitting in silence, that the practice of awareness truly deepens. It is in these moments that you learn to observe the thoughts that arise without judgment, without trying to control them. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You begin to see the world through the lens of awareness, no longer clouded by the past or the future. The present moment becomes vivid, alive, and full of possibility. At first, this may seem like a subtle shift, almost imperceptible. But as you continue, the change becomes more profound. You begin to see the richness of life in ways you never noticed before. Colors become more vibrant, sounds more clear, and every interaction with another person feels more genuine, more authentic. You no longer approach life with the filter of expectation or fear, but with openness, curiosity, and presence. In relationships, this shift is especially transformative. How often do we enter into relationships with preconceived notions, with ideas about who the other person is or should be? How often do we react to others based on past experiences or unspoken fears? But when you observe your thoughts and emotions with awareness, you begin to see others as they truly are, without the distortion of your own projections. You begin to see them with compassion, with understanding, and with love. This doesn't mean that relationships become perfect or that conflict disappears. But it does mean that you are able to approach each moment with a new perspective. A perspective that allows for true connection, where the ego no longer interferes with the flow of love and understanding. You become less reactive, more present, and more capable of responding to others with kindness and empathy. It is this shift in perception that has the power to transform not only your relationships but your entire life. When you no longer define yourself by your thoughts, your fears, or your desires, you become free. You become free from the past, free from the endless cycle of craving and aversion, and free from the need to control or manipulate the world around you. This freedom is not an escape from reality, it is a deeper engagement with it. It is the ability to face life's challenges with a clear mind and an open heart. It is the capacity to respond to adversity with wisdom, not fear, and to embrace joy with gratitude, not attachment. As you continue to deepen your practice of awareness, you will find that the world begins to change around you. People may begin to treat you differently, not because you are trying to change them, but because you are no longer playing into the dynamics of ego and expectation. You begin to attract the things that resonate with your true nature, and you start to let go of the things that no longer serve you. In the end, this practice of awareness is not just about inner peace or mental clarity. It is about living in a way that is authentic, aligned with your true self. It is about living from a place of freedom, where every action, every thought, and every word comes from a space of love, understanding, and insight. Krishnamurti once said, "The freedom to be is not the freedom to do as you like, but the freedom from the conditioning that holds you in its grip." This freedom is not something to be attained, it is already within you, waiting to be uncovered. It is in your very nature, and all that is required is the willingness to see through the illusion of the ego and the conditioned mind. This is the essence of personal transformation, to recognize that your thoughts, your fears, your desires, none of them define you. You are the awareness that observes them, and it is in that awareness that true freedom resides. And so, as you continue to walk this path, remember that every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to the truth of who you really are. Every moment of awareness is a moment of liberation. And in that liberation you will find peace, love, and the freedom to live authentically, without the burden of thought, without the chains of conditioning. When you truly understand that you are not the thoughts in your mind, when you realize that you are the awareness that transcends them, you will experience life in a way that is profoundly different from anything you have ever known. It will be a life filled with clarity, purpose, and, most importantly, a deep sense of peace that comes from the knowledge that you are free. The journey to this understanding is not always easy. But as Krishnamurti said, it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Your freedom lies in seeing beyond the confines of your conditioned mind, in breaking free from the chains of thought that have bound you for so long. And as you do, you will discover that you are already everything you've been seeking, free, whole, and deeply at peace.